0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit taroks.co.uk. Yes, it's me, Mike Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver Podcast. It's the fastest, it's the friendliest, and it's for all the family. The Gas Shocks 116 Trophy and 120 Coupe Cup are the fastest growing race series in the UK, taking in 6 one-hour races and 8 sprints at all the top circuits. Visit 116trophy.com to find out more and get yourself behind the wheel. From a pot of tea to TT motorbikes. From a classic English breakfast to a full serving of classic cars. Bridge House Tea Rooms is the Northwest premier classic car meeting location for cars, bikes, tractors and owners clubs. So no matter what your automotive appetite might be, visit Bridge House Farm Tea Rooms on their Facebook page or call John and Alicia on 07980 444 221 for show details and to reserve your own table and parking space.
I'd like to introduce to the Backseat Driver radio show a racing driver whose daughter was a guest a few weeks ago. And Amy Watts said one of her ambitions is to beat her father at something. Well, she did. She beat him onto the Backseat Driver radio show. So this morning I'd like to introduce her more famous father, Patrick Watts. Patrick, welcome to the Backseat Driver radio show.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mark.
Now,
being here. Ask my daughter.
Yes. Your daughter commented. She said, "I shall have to get my dad to come on." So here you are. At long last, it's been a little bit overdue in her coming, but you are finally on the show.
I'm honoured.
Now we know where Amy's racing came from because she has you as a father. Where did racing come from you? Is it a family tradition, or were you the first?
It wasn't a family tradition, but my father did. He was a doctor, and he was a car enthusiast.
Yeah.
He was actually a general surgeon, so he had to make sure he didn't have cuts and bruises all over his hand when he turned up to operate on someone's gallbladder on a Monday morning after a weekend. So his basic mechanical skills were no more than actually changing the tyres on a car, maybe. Although I do remember him actually cross-threading the plugs on his Volkswagen Sirocco because he thought he could venture into actually changing the plugs, but ended up having to buy a new cylinder head because he cross-threaded the plugs when he put them back in. So he didn't have any mechanical aptitude, which I thought was a bit odd for a surgeon, which I thought would require mechanical aptitude of levers and stresses and whatever, but obviously he was a very successful surgeon and didn't require that. But he did a little bit of rallying when it was a matter of just changing your road tyres on your TR3 to town and country tyres and going rallying.
So the good old days of rallying,
the good old days where it involved town and country tyres and a bubble hat.
And if you were really pushing the boat out, you took the hubcaps off and put a pair of spotlights on.
I think he took the hubcaps off and spotlights on the back, reversing lights, because I think he probably did more reversing than forwards. But also he officiated as a doctor on one of the marshal posts up at Brands Hatch. So on a Sunday morning, my brother and I would be chucked in the car and taken up to Brands Hatch, chucked in the press box with a box of sandwiches for the day, and that's when we must have been about 10 or 11 years old. So that was my first introduction to motor racing, was basically being stuck in the press box underneath the main grandstand of Brands Hatch whilst Dad officiated, and we'd watch the racing. And I seem to remember we were up there for Grand Prix, because I remember the cigarette-shaped cars on the grid, which must have included people like Jim Clark, Graham Hill, etc. But I wasn't so much interested in those than the saloon cars. There was always a saloon car race with Ford Anglias and latterly Escorts, but in my day, Ford Anglias and Minis and Ford Galaxies, which must have been the British Saloon Car Championship.
Yeah.
I always loved the saloon cars, and that was my introduction into motorsport, really. But when I got home, I'd tune up the lawnmower. I would put stickers all over my push bike, which by the time I was like 14, I had a moped.
Yeah.
And again, that was all tuned up. It wasn't really tuned up, but I thought it was tuned up. You'd fiddle around with it, you'd paint bits, put stickers on things. If you put stickers on things, it turned it into a race car or a race bike. I had a thing called a rally runabout, which was a pedal moped, a proper moped, where you pedalled it as well as having an engine that sort of assisted you. Probably no more power than a modern electric push bike has got. But
because the engines of those only cut in when you reached a certain momentum pedaling, didn't they?
Yeah, and they were mounted on springs which tensioned the belts of the rear wheels, and they weren't very powerful. And I remember replacing the front. The front suspension was elastic bands.
Yeah.
And so I replaced those with wire to make it solid.
Yeah.
Again, a modification that probably made the thing a whole lot worse, but it was fiddling around. I always liked fiddling around with cars, motorbikes, lawnmowers, all those sort of things. I learned very quickly how to break something, and it took me a little bit longer to learn how to mend things.
Yeah.
And one thing that Amy does say of me, if something's broken, don't worry, Daddy will fix it. I can fix anything. I'm such an expert in breaking things over the years that I've learned very efficiently how to mend something. So
in many ways, you're a self-taught mechanic in many ways.
I am. I feel that this is part of the motor racing side. I often try and think, what makes a racing driver? You look at racing drivers, well, it's certainly not their physical appearance. You get the Jerry Marshall, or you get the small little Formula One driver.
Yeah.
I think they're all equally capable. So it's not the physical attributes of a driver that makes them quick. So what is it? Michael Schumacher once said it was three-dimensional conception. Now, that's understanding your proximity in the world, the proximity of what you're sitting in, I guess. And for that, I think he was right. It's three-dimensional conception of understanding the dynamics of you within a car, and also understanding how the dynamics of the car can be affected to make its performance around the race get better.
Yeah.
And being able to feel the differences as well. And I've always been good at that sort of thing.
Yeah.
One of my businesses was storage racking for warehousing. Now, I could walk into a warehouse. This was big warehouses for people like Tesco's and John Lewis. And you'd have a consultant there that was highly employed, highly paid to work out exactly what John Lewis wanted. But I'd walk in there and I would listen to him. I said, but you got that wrong. It's this, that. I had an attitude of looking at something, a warehouse, and actually being able to look and see the finished article before anybody else could.
Yeah.
and therefore I could outsell everybody else when I was selling storage racking, because I came up with a better concept than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's three-dimensional conception. And when it comes down to car racing, I know what the car's doing. I remember when I was racing for Mazda with Roger Dowson Engineering and Mazda UK in the British Touring Car Championship. We first tested the Mazda Casidos, was it?
Oh, yeah.
Then, the Mazda Casidos.
Yeah, the Mazda with the unpronounceable name.
Yeah, and we went testing at Silverstone, where Roger was based. And I took the car around for a few laps, came back in, I said, look, the front wheel is coming off the ground. It's a front-wheel drive car. So the last thing you want in a front-wheel drive car on the race circuit is the front wheels coming off the ground, round a corner. Maybe on an Escort or an old Ford Cortina, you'd have the front wheel off the ground because the back wheels would be planted where the traction is. But on a front-wheel drive car, you want the back wheel off the ground, if anything.
Yeah.
And therefore putting the load onto the front. But I came back into this. I said, Roger, the front wheel's coming off the ground. He said, how do you know that? I said, I know it is. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And it's doing this and it's doing that. And they didn't believe me. So they went out and watched on one of the corners, and it was exactly doing that. The front wheel was coming off the ground about 2 inches.
Yeah.
And so make arrangements make the back end stiffer, the front end softer, and cured all that. And that's always been the way. I can actually feel what the car is doing, which you can either cure that mechanically or drive it differently.
Yeah.
I've always said to Amy about how she approaches the corner. You know, there are various parts of a corner when you're going around there in a race car as quickly as you can to obviously lower your lap time. And you've got the transition of braking to going into the corner to coming out of the corner. And the tyres on the car can only do one thing 100%.
Yeah.
They can either brake 100%, or they can accelerate 100%, or they can give 100% through a corner. But they can't do everything.
No.
So as you brake a car for a corner, you've got 100% of the load on the front. The wheels are doing, the front tires are doing everything they possibly can in a straight line. As soon as you turn into that corner, you're asking for more than 100%. You want it to give a lateral grip as well. So while you're braking and turning into a corner, transferring all that weight, that's the ideal time to actually change direction. So I always say to her, brake, leave your braking very late, brake as you go into the corner. The front is never going to grip more than when you're on the brakes, and rotate the car before you get back on the power again.
Yeah. Before
the corner even starts, get the car rotated, then get back on the power. And she understands that exactly like I understand that.
Yeah.
So by talking to her about what the car does, she understands exactly what I'm talking about, because she comes back with questions that take it one stage further.
Yeah.
I've talked to other drivers about it, and they don't really understand. And they don't ask the right... I know they don't, because they don't ask the right questions back.
Yeah.
But, three-dimensional conception.
The other thing about being a racing driver, I've always said, is maybe a slight mental imbalance comes in quite handy at times. Because somebody once said about, is it dangerous? I said, it's probably not the safest thing you can go and do. I said, but when you're out there, I said, if you've never raced, I said, you cannot appreciate racing. I said, but those who do race, I said, it's like the old Steve McQueen statement, anything other than racing is just waiting. I said, there is something about it that it's something you want to do.
Racing is great fun. It's like a game of chess. 6RC1 racing is more like a game of chess than any other form of racing, because you've got so much time to think about the next corner or your overtaking maneuver, because the cars are so slow down the straights. So in a 6RC1, you are planning the corner it seems like minutes before you get there. And you're following a group of, say, 3 or 4 cars. And as you follow them around, the lap after lap, getting closer and closer, you can plan your next maneuver. You can plan how you're going to overtake them. You can see how they're reacting. You can see what they're doing. And you've got it all planned. By the time you catch them, you've got it all sussed.
Yeah.
And you're past. And that's great fun. It's a great fun game, racing. It's a mental challenge of tactics, of solutions to a problem. In other words, get past those people in front. And it's very absorbing. When, like, with Amy gives good feedback, because I've forgotten when I first started racing what the thrill was and what the challenges were, but I'm getting all that back through Amy, who's only now done 6 races.
Yeah.
And I try and teach her all these things, all these tactics, and it's the feedback I get is reminds me of what it was like when I first started motor racing, and it was all a bit of a blur, and you'd be very reactive to situations. A situation would occur, and you're trying to sort it out. When you get a bit more experience, you can be proactive when you can anticipate what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you can anticipate what's happening, if you can see what's going to happen in front of you, in terms of maybe going too quickly into a corner and it's sliding, it doesn't catch you unawares. So when she's a bit more experienced, she'll be able to drive over the top. She can drive 110%, but it's never out of control.
Yeah.
You are driving 110% and you're reacting to what the car does. You don't know what it's going to be doing, but you've got a good idea of what it's going to do.
Well, the other thing is as well, if you're following another driver for, say, a couple of laps, you can see how they will constantly keep taking a particular corner. And it's like you said, it's chess, it's tactics and preempting. So if you think the driver in front always takes this corner slightly wrong, which means he always leaves us a gap or potentially a gap.
You're right.
That is where you will overtake them.
Yeah. I've done a bit of rallying as well.
Yeah.
In the British Historic Rally Championship, which is like very competitive. I did it in my Sunbeam Tiger.
Oh, right.
And so there's nothing more fun than actually charging through a woods legally, with your navigator alongside you telling you where the corners are going to be going. But you've never been on that road before, and that is all about reaction.
Yeah.
You don't know what's round the other side of the corner, but you can't anticipate that it's going to be slipperier than it is on every single corner, or you'll be slow.
Yeah.
You've got to assume that it's flat out. And if it's not flat out, you've got to sort it out pretty quick before you hit the trees.
Yeah.
And that is reactive. That's reactive. And that requires bravery. We're talking about, bravery. Circuit racing to me is not brave. Rallying is brave.
Yeah.
I never wanted to bring my Sunbeam Tiger back in a pile of bits. I always wanted to bring it back in one piece. It's so much of an arse repairing a car.
Yeah.
It's much nicer just to wash it down and develop it.
And give it a quick service.
Not spend 2 weeks repairing it, so it's back in probably the same condition it was before you started. You want something that gets better and better and better, and that doesn't help when you crash the thing. So I always played it safe when I was rallying, which meant I won enough rounds and didn't not finish on any rounds, and therefore I won the championship.
Yeah.
So it's a good way of actually winning the championships is by not getting into trouble and driving too fast. Just go fast enough to beat the next person. That's all you have to do.
True.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed looking at your career, you started, you had Fiat Uno turbos, and Mazda MX-5. So you took what is now considered, probably was then, the proper clubman's route into racing by starting small, for want of a better term.
I started on what I could afford to do, and it started off with mini 850s. Well, it started off actually hill climbing. My brother and my dad decided they wanted to go hill climbing. I was 16 at the time.
Yeah.
They wanted to do a hill climb, so they bought a racing Mini, and it was actually a Mini Miglia, which wasn't the ideal car for hill climbing because that was a 998 engine, and everybody else had 970S engines.
Yeah.
Who were in the 1000cc class in hill climbing, but nevertheless they bought it and whatever, and it kept breaking down, and so I got involved. I mended it, and actually by the time I was 17, I was hill climbing that and leading the Geisen, what's called the Geisen Beat Blaster Hill Climb Championship, which was the national hill climb championship, until I ran out of tyres up at Loden Park. It ran on slicks, but I had no money. My dad didn't really appreciate that you needed to put new tyres on the car on anything less than 30,000 miles a year. So the front tyres of the IB19 Firestones, as they were worn down to the canvas.
Yeah.
And the scrutineer spotted that at scrutineering at Loden Park. So, but I didn't have any other tyres. I only had 4 tyres.
Yeah.
So he said, look, bring it back without canvas. So all I did was put the canvas tyres on the back of the car, and I put what were quite good tyres from the back onto the front, and took it up to scrutineer, and he said, yep, that's better, you know. He didn't look at the back tyres to find out that I put the front tyres on the back. Went out of my first run of the day, and it oversteered.
Yeah.
The front tyres were very grippy. The back tyres were not very grippy. And I had a big oversteer, ended up upside down in a pond on the outside. I think they call it the semicircle, which is the end of the first long left-hander at Loden Park.
Yeah.
And big oversteer through there, off the side of the track, and upside down into a pond or a lake, where my first impression was the fact that I think I punctured the radiator, because there's brown water flowing in.
Yeah.
And by the time it got about 6 inches deep in the car, I realised actually it wasn't just the radiator water dashing in. It was the pond, and then the marshals pulled me out, and that was that. But I went from that to doing the Mini 850, Mini 7 Championship, very competitive national championship. I did that in my Mini and won that in my second year, and that was racing against people, legends like Chris Tyrrell and Steve Hall and Gary Hall and Graham Waskett and Steve Soper was in the 1275 GTs, the next class up from that. And I won that championship, but this was on minimal sponsorship.
Yeah.
I got a bit of help from Nick Whiting, who ran All Car Equip, which was opposite Brands Hatch, and they did grease car spares and bits and pieces. And he gave me discount, and that was my sponsorship. I got discount on some of the bits I needed.
Yeah.
I had another sponsor, White Post Garage, which was emblazoned down the side of the car, and the deal on that was I wasn't getting tens of thousands of pounds off them. What I was doing was borrowing their truck at weekends, and that was the deal.
Yeah.
I'll put White Post Garage on the car if I can borrow your truck at weekends to take the car to the racetrack. So it wasn't a big deal. So I didn't have any money. I couldn't afford to. Spark plugs I used to get from the breaker's yard. I used to go around the breaker's yard looking for newer cars with similar plugs and take them out of that. Everything was done on the cheap. I bought a cylinder head and an inlet manifold from a guy on a bridge over the M1.
Yeah.
And that was the basis of the race engine, which I slung together. And that was my downfall insofar as I could have won the Mini 8. I won the Mini 850 championship, but the winner of the Mini 850 championship and the winner of the 1000cc Mini Miglia championship and the winner of the 1275 GT championship, the one who had the most, they're all separate championships, but the person with the most points out of any of those championships was the overall winner. And got a brand new 1275 GT, £4,000 worth of car as the prize. And I was destined to get that.
Yeah.
But on the final round of the championship, my engine was taken apart, and one of these parts I bought on top of the bridge over the M1 2 years earlier was a restrictor.
Yeah.
That goes between the carburetor and the engine. And on Mini 850s, that restrictor had to be 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
And the scrutineer came along with a no-go gauge. If it went through, it was too big. If it didn't go through, it was legal.
Yeah.
And Mike Darton was the scrutineer then, and he came along with his no-go gauge, and it wouldn't go through. But he said I could see a bit of light down the sides.
Yeah.
So it's overlies, Patrick. Therefore, it's illegal. And therefore, I had 10 points deducted from my championship. I still won the Mini 850 championship, but I missed out on the overall 1275 GT. And in hindsight, if I'd had friends in motorsport, if I'd had connections in motorsport, someone would have said to this 20-year-old, appeal that.
Yeah.
Appeal it to the MSA, the authorization body, and because that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
But I was too naive. I just went away and was totally depressed for the next several months. Took a long time to get over that because I ran out such a big overdraft with my racing. I had a sticker on my, or not a sticker, a badge on my overalls that looked like a Visa card.
Yeah.
It said, live now, pay later. Which I was doing. But yeah, that was very disappointing. So,
Now, if we move forward a little bit, you then eventually became a driver in the British Touring Car Championships, which is still, I mean, it's like the advancement of the British saloon cars. I mean, it is still, in my opinion, one of the race series. But you started possibly, I mean, the first, shall we say, big manufacturer you drove for was Peugeot, was it not?
Well, no, it was Austin Rover Group, because after I'd won these mini championships, John Davenport said, do you want to race for us next year? You'll be a professional driver. We'll pay you double what you're getting as a salesman selling storage racking.
Yeah.
And I couldn't say yes quick enough, really. So I ended up in the Metro Turbo with teammates to Tony Pond.
Yeah.
In the British Touring Car Championship. And all went very well. I was leading the championship when Austin Rover Group pulled out.
Yeah.
They pulled out because of there was a big argument between BMW and Tom Walkinshaw that ran the Rovers, our sister team, and it ended up Austin Rover Group pulling out of the British Touring Car Championship in protest over the alleged allegations of Tom Walkinshaw's interpretation of the rules for the Rover and the British Touring Car Championship.
Yeah.
But that's another story. But it was a disappointment for me because I would have been British Touring Car champion quite easily, really.
Yeah.
In the days when it was done in various classes, and the Metro Turbo was very dominant in the 2.5 litre class.
Yeah.
So 1300 plus a turbo, so it's got a currency factor of 1.4 or whatever. So it took the Metro Turbo to the 2.5 litre class, where it competed against the Alfa Romeo GT V6s.
Yeah.
Phil Dowsett was racing one of those, and somebody else, and John Dooley in the can't remember who sponsored him, but anyhow, I would have won that if Austin Rover Group hadn't pulled out.
Yeah.
So from there, I did a bit of one-make racing. I did the new Honda CRX Championship the following year and won that. And then the following year, I did that and the Mazda MX-5 Championship and won both of those. So then the British Touring Car Championship was going to go 2 litre.
Yeah.
And this was the much heralded formula that led into Super Touring, where all the cars would be 2 litre and big manufacturers would get involved.
Yeah.
And because I'd raced for Roger Dowson in the Metro Turbo, and he was preparing the Mazdas for Mazda UK, because I'd raced for Roger, he knew me. Shell sponsored the Peugeot 309, which I actually raced in the previous season as well. I won that championship. That's the SO Saloon Car Championship. The SO Saloon Car Championship. I won that for Peugeot, which was sponsored by Shell. And winning the Mazda MX-5 Championship. So I had Mazda on my side, I had Shell on my side, and I had Roger Dowson on my side. So I got the drive in the Mazda Casinos to the British Touring Car Championship. And yeah, all my dreams came true, basically. A nice salary, a nice company car, and a great car to race in the British Touring Car Championship. But it was a bit of a low budget affair. There was only a single car out there.
Yeah.
And although I had one pole position, one front row of the grid, and we didn't have a lot of success. I'd be in the top half dozen, but it was a very low budget affair against people. Yeah, there were big teams in there. Schnitzer running the BMWs, you had the Vauxhalls, you had the Fords, you had the Nissans, you had the Toyotas. I could have actually been in the Toyota with Andy Rouse,
yeah,
instead of Will Hoy, because at that time Alan Gow had just come over. Alan Gow had organised the Australian Touring Car Championship, and then he came over to the UK and worked for Andy Rouse.
Yeah,
and I had a phone call from Alan Gow on behalf of Andy Rouse saying, Andy wants you to race the Toyota with him in the British Touring Car Championship. And I said, unfortunately, 2 days ago, I signed a deal with Mazda.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that was the biggest mistake of my life. I could have raced with Andy. I know I would have done a very good job with Andy. I did a bit of work with him 10, 15 years later. But yeah, that was an opportunity missed, I think. I think I should have turned down I should have rescinded the Mazda deal and ended up with Andy Rouse. But I didn't. And then I went from the Mazda to Peugeot, because with Peugeot, there was an opportunity. That's when Des O'Dell ran the competition department. When I won the SO Saloon Car Championship in the Peugeot 309, I thought that, and the following year the Touring Car Championship came on, I knew Peugeot were doing that. I thought I was going to automatically go into the Peugeots at the start of the new British Touring Car Championship, the later thing. But Des O'Dell said, I've got some good news and some bad news, Patrick. And I said, well, give me the bad news first. He said, you're not driving for us next year in the British Touring Car Championship. And I said, well, well, what's the good news? He said, the good news is we've got Rob Rabbit. I thought, how exciting for you. But 2 years later, they came to their senses, and Rob Rabbit moved on, and I replaced Rob. And we had quite a bit of success, quite a few podium positions in that Peugeot. But the team slowly went downhill. I think that was a French-built car, and then the Brits started building North at Humber Road.
Yeah.
And the budgets got less and less, and the Peugeots were never budgeted enough to get within the realms of the cars that had much bigger budgets. For instance, we would turn up at Donington the first round of the championship, and it would be the first time I'd driven the car.
Yeah.
And everybody else had been testing in Spain all winter.
Yeah.
So the fact that I reckon we were 0.3 of a second off within every single race. That's how competitive the British Touring Car Championship was.
Right. Patrick, what I'm going to have to do now, we're running out of time, is stop you, and we will record part 2 straight after, if that's okay. So for Patrick Watts Racing, thank you very much for joining me for part 1 of your 2-part interview.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Hoddy Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hoddy Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddytyres.co.uk.